Urban explorers of Reddit, what is your creepiest or most horrifying experience? Went to an abandoned hospital. There was a large square staircase spiraling up to the roof on the outside of the building. Locked steel door at the bottom, so the only way up was to climb on the outside up to the first landing. My buddy boosts me up. I climb over, and there's a sleeping bag with a steak knife next to it on the landing. I call down, we're definitely not alone here, dude. No, but it's cool, says a voice behind me, scaring me and causing me to jump and whirl around. There's a young, dirty, homeless-looking guy standing there, coming down the stairs from above. Hands up, palms out. Didn't mean to scare you. He takes a seat on the stairs, so I carefully step on the handle of the steak knife, lean over the edge, and pull my friend up. We had planned to sit on the roof and drink beer, so we offer homeless guy a beer, which he gratefully accepts, and we shoot on the landing for a while. We are talking about the city, the cops, traveling, life in general. He's basically a drifter, been in town for a week or so, but a nice guy. Things are going pretty well when he asks, "You guys are human, right?" I hate it when I meet people that end up being aliens, and you never know until you peel their skin off. They've been after me a long time, you know. They don't stop, they never stop. Sometimes I think I should just kill everyone to be safe. He's definitely not joking, and there's an uncomfortable silence as my friend and I realize this guy is crazy. "Yeah, man," I say. "We're human. We just wanted to check out the place and drink some beer. We're gonna go ahead and move on now. We definitely don't want any trouble." He just stares in silence, so we leave him the last beer, carefully back up to the railing, jump down and walk away very quickly, constantly looking back over our shoulders. The entire time, he's just standing there, still and silent, watching us leave. That place is still abandoned 5 years later, and we've never been back. I'm not a believer in the supernatural, but humans can be deceptive and dangerous in ways you can't see coming. A group of my friends and I explored an abandoned asylum or mental hospital a couple of years ago in the OKC metro. Very unsafe at night for silly college freshmen like ourselves. The first experience we had was all of us taking our merry time enjoying the darkness and generally goofing around. You have to come in through a broken window, and we were all gathered at the window just being dumb when we hear loud, echoing footsteps down the hall running towards us. We all did that "who isn't here, who's messing with us" look, and turn, and after realizing we're all present and none of us are sprinting down a dark abandoned hallway, booted out of there. The second time, we could hear a group of people messing with us, jumping from around corners and such, but they never got too close. We assumed it was an animal at first, but got brave and realized it was a person. We managed to catch them, and after staring at a collection of seemingly drugged-up 20-somethings who begged us for cans of paint and cigarettes, we got the not-so-good vibes, finally you say, and tried to leave. The leader of the haunted asylum cronies asked if we had jewelry, which we denied. He then said the creepiest thing I've heard in my life. "I like jewelry. I take it off the girls here when they sleep." We bolted. Went to a closed-up mental hospital in my city with some friends at night. Everything was cool until we got to the basement, where there were 5-meter wide and 4-meter high lit tunnels going far to both directions. We headed down one end and found a huge active generator. Then we went the other way, and as we were about to hit another intersection, we saw 2 men wearing full green attires and face masks walking at the end of one of the corridors at 2 a.m. We got out of there real quick. Exploring an abandoned construction site. It's a site out in redneck country that's got a bunch of old construction vehicles getting overgrown with plants, and my girlfriend and I decided to go check it out, see what it's all about. We look around and don't see a whole lot. It's about to rain, so we decided to head out. As we are getting in my car, my girlfriend freezes and says, "There's a guy in the woods watching us." I ask her if she's sure. She repeats herself and says he saw her see him and laid flat on the ground to hide himself. Noped out of there real quick. When I was in college, a few friends and I went to this local abandoned hotel. It was a swanky place back in like the 50s, but had just been sitting around abandoned and fenced off ever since. We walked by and saw an open window on a second-story ledge and ended up finding an old wooden ladder nearby on the property. We went in and hung around and saw a bit of great graffiti. The whole place was trashed with actual garbage as well as bits of the building that were falling apart. We made it up the staircase to the third floor looking in each of the rooms. The area we were in used to be the housing for the staff of the hotel. The third floor was covered in garbage from throughout the years. We got to the last room on the third floor and looked in to find a lit candle with no one else around. Realizing we were not alone, we booked it out of there, and once we were outside, looked up to see someone watching us from one of the windows. Now we went to college in a city with a significant homeless problem and assumed we had just stumbled onto someone's home. But still, it freaked us out. They cemented up the place after another explorer fell down an open elevator shaft and broke his legs. And it has recently been renovated and they are turning it into an apartment building. Not the creepiest find, but definitely freaked us out in the moment. This happened 8 years ago when I was a sophomore in high school. My Urbex friends and I were on a bike ride looking for cool places to explore in a relatively dilapidated area when we discovered a really creepy cave. An old abandoned cement mine, we later learned. We did some mild exploring that first day, but quickly realized it would require more gear to thoroughly explore. Flashlights, respirators, etc. About a week later, 5 of us came back with the proper gear and a camera to see what we could find in the mine. We discovered there was basically one main shaft that sloped downwards and deeper into the earth, so we followed that main route. It was wide enough for a car to drive down and was pretty well graded, so the walking was easy. There were many rooms, old machinery, and rusting equipment off of this main shaft, but we mostly avoided it in the beginning. We were trying not to get lost or confused. Along the way, the walls were littered with the classic abandoned graffiti. X was here, swastikas, initials and dates, phallic drawings, etc. As we got deeper and deeper through, the graffiti really thinned out. At this point, the light from the entrance was long gone and we were relying solely on flashlights. The air was so stagnant and hazy with particles that the light from our flimsy flashlights would only go 20 feet or so before getting totally obscured by dust. Thank goodness for the respirators. The glow sticks we had brought to mark our way to prevent getting lost were also basically useless because they would disappear in the haze only a few steps after dropping them, and we had only brought 10 or so. At this point, we started arguing among ourselves. Several of the crew was nervous about going any deeper with the air quality being so terrible and without a good way to prevent us from getting lost. We were probably a quarter mile into the earth now. The rest of us managed to override that sentiment of fear by assuring them that the path was easy and straightforward, so we'd have to try to get lost. We were going to rely on our level-headedness, sense of direction, and flashlight battery life to get out. Despite the agreement to push on, it was becoming very creepy for everyone. We walked for a while in silence, hearing nothing but our own movements and the steady drip of water coming from somewhere deep in the cave. I think we were all pretty scared at this point, but no longer willing to admit it to each other. Then we stumbled across something that all made us stop cold. Dug into the side of the deep stone shaft we were slowly descending was a tunnel, an offshoot. It was narrow, you'd have to crouch to go through it, and it was also a good few feet off the ground, so it required a scramble to reach it. But that wasn't what made us stop. It was the graffiti. We hadn't seen any for 10 minutes or so and had assumed the artists never came this deep. But someone else clearly had, and the message they left was ominous. The tunnel was lined with words written in white, all of them somehow relating to death and destruction. Scrawled throughout the tunnel were words like suffering, pain, plague, disease, and hell. It was pretty terrifying. Who else would come this far just to write such a terrible message in a mysterious tunnel that broke from the main path? But there was no turning back now. We had to see where the tunnel led to. Despite our fear, we were overpowered by intense curiosity. So one by one, we crawled through the tunnel to the other side. What we found was a strange flooded chamber. Around the pool of water were many large stones, each covered with dozens of burnt-out tea candles. There must have been hundreds of used tea candles in the place. The walls had a few creepy monster faces poorly graffitied on them, and the tunnel entrance back to the main shaft was ringed with a spray-painted blood-stained mouth. What was this place? Some weird ritual site for local Satan worshippers? An elaborate hoax set up by a bunch of kids? We couldn't find much evidence to figure it all out, and we were running out of adrenaline to keep exploring. We all crawled out of that weird hellhole and back into the main shaft, where we promptly headed toward the exit. When we finally saw that pinprick of natural life coming from the real world outside, we were flooded with relief. We never did figure out what that mysterious cavern was for, and I think I'm content to leave it a mystery. No, we didn't hear any monsters in the depths of the tunnel or find any bloody Satan praisers themselves, but just finding that room, buried deep in an old forgotten mine, was enough to creep all of us out for a long time. My wife and I and a friend of ours were exploring an abandoned state-run school for troubled youth with a very nasty history that includes the torture and death of some of the students. Behind the campus, through some woods, was a gravesite with a couple dozen simple crosses to mark the graves. My wife and I were working on photographing the crosses, and our friend was wandering around the gravesite probably 50 feet away from us. He hurries over us with eyes as big as saucers and tells us he saw someone in the woods watching us. Considering how we were not in our hometown, trespassing, and near a county jail, we packed our gear up quickly and started heading back the way we came. We would stop every so often in the woods between the gravesite and the school to watch and listen. I never saw the person that was supposedly watching us, but I did hear someone else walking through the woods after us. Another time we were exploring an abandoned warehouse. We just got in and were walking around the large storage facility in the back when we heard what sounded like a can getting knocked over coming from the offices in the front of the building. We decided to check out the noise before we got into exploring the place and photographing it. All three of us sneak up to the front of the building. I take lead and start navigating the hallways as quietly as possible, looking for the source of the noise. I look into one of the offices expecting to find a cat or some other sort of stray or wild animal, only to find a person kneeling in a corner of the room, facing the corner, and rocking forwards and backwards. I turned back to the group, gave the signal to get out, and we ran for it. Me and a few friends decided to explore this abandoned child's hospital we'd heard about, which was in a small village about an hour from us. We get there, and it's this huge plot of land, trees surrounding the whole place, and the building in the center, real creepy looking. We had to climb up a wall to get inside, as we couldn't get in on the ground floor and had to go through a window that was ajar. After climbing through, the place is a mess, rubble everywhere, but it looked completely desolate, as if no one else had been inside in years. Anyway, we basically went straight up to the roof, sat and had a few beers, then went home. I decided to go back a few days later with my girlfriend to have a proper look around because I wanted to explore it. We went in the building and immediately there was a different vibe unlike the other night. We jumped over the broken staircase to get to the ground floor. This was next to a large heavy-duty wooden door with multiple bolts and chains over it, and found a trap door with a ladder underneath which led to the basement. I convinced my girlfriend to come with me, but she wouldn't explore the basement when we were there, just stayed at the bottom of the ladder with her torch while I had a quick look around. That's when it got really scary. I walked past some machines into the small room, which was completely empty with the exception of a kicked-over chair directly above the chair. I panicked and turned around to leave, when on the wall there was red graffiti, not prepared to believe it was blood because there was a lot, saying "Don't come back." Needless to say, I haven't been back. My girlfriend told me after she felt like I was gone for about an hour, when I was only 5 or 10 minutes, and she kept hearing whispers from the dark corridors, and the trapdoor fell shut above her at one point for no apparent reason. Very scary place. Would love to go back with more people, but that really freaked me out. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below your thoughts or suggestions, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. See you in the next video.